The waiting room.
Welcome to Golden Goal, and we are back for our preview show, our Premier League preview show, of course. We were not here for the review show due to various things going on over the weekend with all of us, but we are back now, and it's myself and George. George, it's me and you, sir.
How you doing, mate? Hope you're good.
I'm all good. I'm all good. Now, if you've seen this live stream go live a few minutes beforehand, you could see a lovely thumbnail on full screen, kind of as a little on hold thing while we prepare the stream, which should allow us to hopefully go live without a bit of a hit, without a hitch, and we can focus on the live show instead of doing all the stuff in the background while we try to host at the same time, because us men can't multitask. Right, there we go. So let's. We didn't review the games. But there was plenty to probably talk about, so we'll just have to skip that for now and maybe find another time to do it. We'll move on to our first game, George, and this is Brighton versus Villa, and I'll tell you why I picked this one. Because you've got Brighton, who are doing very well at the moment, and you've got Villa, who just can't seem to get it consistently. They can't really do it. By the way, you can post your comments and your predictions in the comment section, so feel free to chat. But yeah, George, Brighton doing very well, Villa doing very inconsistently. They've had a few wins, then again they lost to Everton. Granted, it was the League Cup and they didn't have all their players, but what do you think's going to happen in that game?
Yeah, I think it'll be quite interesting game. I don't think Villa are that bothered about being coming out the Carabao Cup, because they've got like bigger fish to fry, like obviously pushing for those Europa League spots and actually being in the Conference League. So I'm not. Yeah, I wasn't really surprised that Villa lost. But yeah, I think they're doing all right in the league. Obviously, I think they beat Chelsea, didn't they, last week? So I think it'll be a good game. It's hard to call. I think Villa have got the edge because where they're at home. Um, but yeah, I'd probably say 2-1 Villa, maybe.
Do you think when it comes to Villa's consistency, what do you think causes their lack of consistency at the moment with the results? Because it seems like, we say they don't really care about the League Cup, but they seem to be inconsistent in any competition.
I think it's just the jump they've made. You got to think from where they was with Gerrard and all that. They weren't anywhere near any European spots at all. And plus they've got a couple of new players, so it's all about um having that consistency, like you say. But they're not the players they've got. You wouldn't say they're like proper European style players, would you? Like you wouldn't. It's like people like Ollie Watkins and trying to think like Buendia and like so they bought. These players have had to make that big jump up, and then they bought players like Musa Diaby in and Pau Torres and stuff like that. So they've got that European pedigree. So I think it's just got to give them a bit of time. But I think if you spoke to Villa fans, they're happy the way Villa are at the moment. They're back in Europe. It's been a while since they've not been in Europe, Villa.
Yeah, that is very true. To be honest, it's been quite a while, and I think they're still not doing too badly, to be fair, considering they are fighting on multiple fronts. They've got the League Cup, they're not anymore, but up until this week, they've had the League Cup, Europa League, and the Premier League. You're really looking at a team that has tried its best to fight on multiple fronts, and it hasn't always worked. When it comes to Brighton, I think Brighton are on fire pretty much at the moment. Yeah, they lost to Chelsea in the League Cup, but let's be honest, that was one of these losses where it was an unlucky one, really. It was quite a close game from what I've seen. So I'm going to go for a Brighton win also, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Brighton as well, actually. I'm going to go with your prediction there. We move on to the next game, and I want you to tell me, Bournemouth-Arsenal, Bukayo Saka most likely not going to play. He has not trained following, the London derby, which I've not seen the game, but I've seen enough of comments to know that stuff happened. Yeah. What do you think's going to happen there?
So some rumours that are coming out tonight is that Saka's travelled to Bournemouth. So I'm not saying how true that is, but if it is true, that's positive. It's really hard for me to say, mate, because how many injuries we've got. Like, if it's all true, we've got 8 first-team players out, and I know other people have been saying, "Oh, but other teams have." Yeah, but they have. For me, they haven't got 8 players in their first team that would play that are all out. Like, so for the listeners who don't know who potentially could be out, that's Timber, Saliba, Partey, Rice, Vieira, Saka, Martinelli, and Trossard. That's a lot. That's basically most of Arsenal's first team. Do I think we should still have enough to get the win at Bournemouth? I don't think it'll be easy. Even part of me, if Saka and Saliba are fit, I'd still rather not see them. Just obviously FPL wise, I would, but as an Arsenal fan, I'd rather not. Then the rest of them and then we've got Lons, and then we've got Man City next weekend. So yeah, I think it gives people like Reece Nelson and Emil Smith-Rowe a perfect time to run out. As long as I ain't got to see Edin and Nketiah through the middle, then I'm okay. But yeah, I'd probably say Arsenal. I'll go 3-1 because Bournemouth can score, and but then they've got their own injuries as well because Dominic Solanke could be injured. So it's just mad how many injuries are flying around at the minute, and it's not just one team. And I'm not saying that in case if we lose, it'll be, oh, well, we had all these players out. It's not an excuse. It's just a matter of fact, really. And yeah, like just quickly going over the Spurs game, like with Saka. Problem with Saka, because he's our best player, he gets kicked to shreds. So he's not given that much protection from referees. Like, I think other players are that we won't mention. So I think that's the problem with like Bukayo. Like where he's Arsenal's main man, he just gets kicked to pieces, and then obviously one of them come off that he's picked up an injury. But I don't think he'll be like that bad. Like if he's not playing tomorrow, he'll definitely be playing next week. Right. So yeah, hopefully we can get the win and keep bouncing back. Like, we've got to bounce back from that Tottenham performance and result because it wasn't good enough. But I think what everyone does forget as well, it's because how good City are. Arsenal are still unbeaten. We've still not lost a game. And I think that's what some of our fan base, they forget that. But if Arsenal can beat Man City, then that 4-point gap's no longer there, is it? So,
I mean, there's a lot of things to unravel there. I mean, the main question I have is when it comes to fitness, like you say, this is not a problem with just one club. You've got Chelsea and Manchester United who have paper thin squads at the moment. What do you think is the difference? Because yeah, sure, fitness issues have happened every season you get them, but it seems this season in particular so far, is it me or has there been a lot more injuries this season which have completely changed certain teams so quickly?
Oh, yeah, bang on. I think there's too many too many games. Like we have international tournaments, then they go straight back into like you think from the World Cup, we had that in January or whenever it was. And then they got back to in playing Premier League, and then by the time the season's finished, some clubs are going and training again in like end of June, early July. Then we've got pointless friendlies and all that with more international breaks. There's got to be a time when when it's got to kind of chill out and stop. Um, and like I don't, and it's not an excuse, but what I don't think people think of is the amount of added time that gets added on now. Like players are not playing 90 minutes every other couple of days; they're playing at least 100, and some in some games. Like one of the games the other day was 17 minutes added on. That's well, not far off. It's not far off half and half, is it? Um, so there's a number of things really. Like it could be like what's going on training wise, but I think it's more with the amount of games getting played. And I know people say, "Oh, the best players should be able to play 2 or 3 games in a week." Yeah, they should, but it's not as simple as that anymore. It's like they're not just 90 minutes, are they? Like you think, say you have someone who plays 3 games in 10 days, and they're all 105, 106 minutes at least. That's you break that down. It's a lot. I know a lot of clubs are having injuries. Some clubs are being a bit lucky with their injuries. Like they might have a few, but they've only got like 2 or 3, like main first teamers. But when you lose a big bulk of your regular starters, that's when you can't be surprised. Can't be surprised. But it's funny how Man City don't seem to get a lot of injuries, isn't it? Like they get a couple, but not like the rest of us have been. But we'll see what happens with the injuries as well. There's got to be something they do. Fitness. Arsenal, I'd be a bit concerned about fitness because we've had 3 players get knocks in training. So that's either really coincidental or there's something they've got to analyse.
I mean, my thing here is I think it seems the amount of time players play this season because of the added time rule is more of a contributor. Because let's look at the last few seasons. We've always had lots of games at the beginning of the season. We had the international break and we've had the preseason friendlies and the pointless international friendlies and all that. We've always had that. But the one thing we didn't have and we've now gained is that added time rule. And I'm surprised because that must be what's causing it because we've not had these amount of injuries before, even though we had similar things happening in pre-season and similar large amounts of games at the beginning of the season. But yet, this added time rule has caused a lot more injuries to players.
What I would do with it is I wouldn't even add it on at the end. I'd just stop the clock. So like, soon as it's out of play or people doing the substitution rule, or I just stop that clock, and then when you're getting on with the game, you start it again. Because like, and I understand why, in some cases, why they put so many time on because so many teams time waste. So they're making it worse for themselves, but they've got to analyse it. Like you look, as far as I know, Ben Chilwell's just got a really bad injury. Like in the week. So that's another one injured. Like off the top of my head, obviously the Arsenal players. Then you've got Regulon. You've got
And Botman's also now injured.
yeah,
Harvey Barnes,
yeah, like and you've got like people like
Kevin De Bruyne.
yeah, De Bruyne, Malacia, like Regulon, Martinez, like just to name a few from United. Like so, it's not like just a handful. well, it's double figures now. So yeah, I don't know. It's something they've got to think of because realistically, the teams that are going to do better are the ones who are going to be lucky that ain't got injuries.
Yeah, to me, it seems, like I said, the amount of injuries significantly increased this season than it has the season before. And I agree. Just stop the clock. They do it in so many other sports. They stop the clock. It's not
Yeah.
that difficult, to be honest. Just to say, in 10 minutes in the Sheffield Wednesday Sunderland game, Sunderland are 2-0 up against Sheffield Wednesday, team bottom of the table. Sunderland very much already pretty much seem in control of that game so far.
There's
So,
loads of trouble there as well, isn't there, at Sheffield Wednesday? Because the owner said he's going to stop funding the club.
yeah, there's a lot going wrong there. It'd be interesting to see how things develop in with the club. It's a shame because they just got
Yeah.
back into the championship, and it's far from rosy at Hillsborough, which is yeah, a bit
But
frustrating.
that kind of caused their own problems, though, to be honest, because
Mm.
like they done well on Darren. I think it was Darren Moore. He got him promoted, and then like that relationship fell apart. So like, and he's doing all right now. Darren Moore. He went to where
He's
did he?
gone to Huddersfield, I think.
Huddersfield, and they won, didn't they? So
Yep, so not doing too bad. Right, we'll move on to the next game. And this is, again, I've picked this one because I think calling it would have been very different until last weekend's game. So I'm going Luton Everton here. And, last week you could have said this game is going to be tough to call. Luton are not doing good. They did pick up their first point of the season. Everton weren't doing good, but then since last weekend, they've beaten Brentford and they've beaten Aston Villa. So the interesting question is now here. What's happening with this game, George? What's your prediction?
I think Everton would be favourites because they're at home as well. I don't. I think Everton have just managed to settle in to what they need, what they want to do. Like this is the reason I said they'll always get out of stuff because they'll always get results. Um, Dominic Calvert-Lewin seems to be fit now and he's scoring. So I've always said that Calvert-Lewin's a big player for Everton. Like if you keep him fit, then they're okay. And I think that's what Lampard suffered from. He didn't have Calvert-Lewin fit, so um, I'd like to see Luton get some points or get some goals on the board, but it's just because you'd just like to see the Championship teams offer a bit more, like as a neutral, like because at the minute the Championship teams are a bit pathetic. Like Sheffield United, well, we know what happened with Sheffield United, but like in Burnley and Luton, I've always said it. Well, I don't know if you agree here, but they're a team that shouldn't be in the Premier League just because I feel like it's a year or 2 years a bit early. Like they managed to prove a lot of people running the Championship and shock people. And you know what? Fair play to them. It's a dream for them to play in the Premier League. It reminds me a bit when Blackpool came in the Premier League. Like you see what their stadium's like and stuff. So fair play to them. Do you know what I mean? Like they still had to go and get into the Premier League, and I do think they'll take results against teams. I'm not saying who, and I'm not saying when, but I think they'll get points. Um, like to be honest, they should have probably beat Wolves. So that was 2 points they probably dropped there, and they've got Everton and Burnley in the next like few days. Like if you're I forgot their manager's name, Rob something, isn't it?
Rob Edwards, is
Rob
he?
Edwards, yeah, that's it. If you're him, you're going into that dressing room saying, "Come on, guys, boys, we've got 6 points up for grabs here." I'm not saying they probably if they got a point at Everton, I think they'd probably be happy with that because obviously it's away. But um, we haven't seen the free flowing football that Luton can play yet, and that is hard when you're like one of these teams coming up from the Championship, but we just have to wait and see. Really, just like to see a good game of football. But I'll probably go 1-0 Everton.
1-0 to Everton. Okie dokie. Yeah, I do agree with a few points there. I think Luton are a bit early to the Premier League. Yes, they've done pretty well in the Championship to get promoted, but even their playoff match was not made easy for them. So I think they weren't ready for the Premier League yet, and I think it's showing pretty much. It's not to say they won't, like you say, they won't take points away from teams because they already took points from Wolves, really, because Wolves were 1-0 up and they were down to 10 men. So Luton did get a point there, probably against the run of play at one point, you would have said, when Wolves were 1-0 up. But it's an interesting one, and I think, fair play to Luton. They've done what they're doing what they can. When it comes to these two games, they are massive for Luton already, because they need to get at least a point from both of these, at least 2 points from the available 6. If they can get more, even better, because they can put themselves in a better position. But
A bit of momentum, doesn't it? Like, for me, I feel like they have to beat Burnley because
yeah,
it's at home as well. Like, at the end of the day, their home games
the home games are where it matters.
is where if they want to stay up, it's their home games that will do it.
Home games and games against the teams around them are the crucial ones for them.
When they're playing, they're actually not playing that bad. Like, there's not been many games where they've just been completely dominated. That Chelsea game,
They had plenty of chances to get back into that game, to be fair, when Chelsea were 1-0 up.
I can't think of many. I've not really watched Luton as much, but there's not been like I don't. If you said to me out of the two, who do I think has a better chance of staying up at the minute, and this is before, and I said this before the last weekend, I'd say Luton ahead of Sheffield United.
Possibly. I mean, it's tricky to talk with about Sheffield United because they got an absolute thrashing by Newcastle on Sunday, and you kind of think
But
that.
even before that, I just don't. They don't really offer.
I don't know.
I know they've scored like they've. I know Tottenham and Man City only just beat them. I don't know. I just don't. They don't score enough for their chances for me. I know you could say that about Luton.
To me, they could both go down, to be honest.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if they. Like I've said, I wouldn't be surprised now if all 3 Championship teams went back down.
Yeah, it's looking like that at the moment, possibly. Prediction-wise, I'm going to go for 2-1 Everton. I think Luton will score because the one thing they have done fairly reliably is actually score a goal.
Yeah.
I think the only game, if I'm correct off the top of my head, that they haven't scored in is the Fulham and Chelsea games. But other than that, they've scored in every game they played so far. So against Everton, I feel they will probably score at least 1 goal.
Yeah, no, I do as well, and that's what might save it. It all depends what Everton turn up. Like there could be an Everton that turn up and smash Luton 3 or 4-0, or it could be a Everton team that turn up and think, oh, hold on, I'm not so sure. But so with the teams going down, I can't see who's any worse than those 3 at the minute. And that's why I always say about the relegation stuff. It's the reason you're staying up. If there's 3 worse teams, and I know it's early to say, and hopefully Burnley or whoever turn it around. But Everton went and got that result at Brentford, which is massive for me. But then Brentford are not playing that well for me since Henry got injured. So
Yeah, it seems to be
do for you, isn't it?
It seems a bad injury for Brentford as well. So it's going to be an interesting one as to where this goes. Moving on to the next game. So it's basically a carbon copy, apart from maybe the players that we're playing, of the League Cup tie between Manchester United and Crystal Palace. You have to say Man United did what they had to do. They got a 3-0 win against Palace, which is probably good for them since they've not really done much recently, and there's all sorts of stories going around in the club. So Man United Palace, George, do you see a different result to what happened in the League Cup?
No, not really. But like before, Man United fans like burst the blood vessel and think they're back. Like, just remember it is only Crystal Palace, who I don't think have been that great this season. Um, it's funny, it's ironic. Like I said, if there's three worse teams than they're going down. And Palace, I'm pretty sure that's the conversation they'll be having at the moment. Because they haven't really, for me, they ain't really done it. I understand and I get they've got injuries, and for a team like Palace, that's probably worse for others because of the size of the squads. But I don't know. Maybe it's Hodgson. I don't know. Like Palace don't excite me. Like last weekend, I watched the highlights of that Fulham game, and that's 90 minutes I'm never getting back.
was going to say there were highlights.
Yeah,
I was
I
with
think the
Palace fans.
highlights.
I was with Palace fans over the weekend, and yeah, they did not seem too thrilled about how that game was going.
Yeah, I think the only highlight was when the full time whistle went. Um, so I just attacking wise, they're blunt for me. Like they've got Eze, and he's a quality player, but he's not being helped. So it's all right having these players around him, but he can't do it on his own. Like he's not a Wilfried Zaha, and he's not at that level yet. So they need to be careful because um, I just think with Roy Hodgson taking that manager's job, is that where your ambition's really at? Like that's no ambition, really, is it? Like there's plenty of young managers out there that you could build a project around, and like and with Palace, and because Palace is a decent club to go to, do you know what I mean? Like it's in London, like the morals and like stuff they have. So it's a shame, really, but hopefully they can sort itself out and Palace is the sort of not now because I think his reputation has been crucified, but Palace would have been the perfect job for Lampard to have gone to build like a project with young players. And do you get what I mean? Like I just think it would have been ideal for Lampard. With United, yeah, they've done well. They've won a couple of games now, but just take game by game, United fans. Stop going ahead of yourself. Like I saw some, I saw some United fan called Bella on Twitter saying that when they won that game last week, they're back in the title race. I'm like, mate, have a word. Um,
Burnley, and it was just that win was nothing. If they were challenging for the title, beating Burnley 1-0 is not exactly convincing form.
so, um, and they've got some games coming up. Obviously, yep, Palace. I think will be easy enough for them to negotiate. But then they've got City coming up. Can't remember who else they've got, but they've got other games coming up. It's just a bit weird, United. Like you can tell, like it's not all plain sailing, is it? On and off the pitch. Obviously they've got the Sancho stuff. I have my own opinions on that, and Anthony and all that, but he seems to be back now, Anthony, so he's allowed to be picked. But then they have got injuries defensively. Like as far as I know, I don't. They've not got a left back now, so they'll probably have to play Delo at left back, and then I don't know whoever else they got, because I think all their fullbacks are out injured. So, um, and this is what I mean. Like you've got Eze, all their fullbacks are injured, so they're gonna have to play someone there who probably don't play there as often. So you'd be in Eze's ear, wouldn't you, saying like, "May I want you to attack them? They're vulnerable there." But I just don't. That's the only way United might struggle is if Eze has like, a very good game. Um, and I might be eating my own words now with Rashford, but I don't think he's been that great this season. Um, so maybe he'll get back in form like this weekend. But I think United will probably. I could see it being like 2-0 again. But just take your time, United. Like you're not in a title race. I think the real fans know that your best chances is to see how far you can get in the Champions League and in the cup. You got Newcastle at home in the cup, another surprise home draw. They don't get many of them. Um, you got a chance to win a cup again. So just take game by game. Like I remember when years ago Arsenal were 15 points clear of United and they caught us. So I know people say the title race is only just starting. I don't think United are in it, just because I think they dropped too many points, and I think if anyone's going to stop City this season, I don't even think it's Arsenal. I think it could be Liverpool. Um, but I still think City are miles ahead of everyone else. But yeah, United just, as Abdi would say, just take game by game.
There we go, got the right screen. Yes, I agree. I think anyone who says they're in a title race in Man United's situation after just beating Burnley, I think is absolutely delusional. And I think it's not surprising because there are United fans that are that quick to jump to something like that. It's not nothing shocking, but it's still a bit like, are you really telling me this? You know, they're not in the title race, far from it. I think there's a lot of problems at United. I think the whole Sancho thing, I have my opinions on that. I think personally, you know, I think Sancho can't cope with the fact that he's not actually that good at United, to be honest. Whether he's a scapegoat or not is a different story. But I do personally think about it with Jadon Sancho. He's not been that good since he came to United, since he left Dortmund, where he was probably one of their star players. Therefore, he probably looked better than he actually was. But you
I
know,
think career suicide sometimes when you go to United.
it's
And I know United fans won't like that, but I think it's true. Like it's not just Sancho it's happened to, is it? Look at Donny van der Beek, one of the most promising midfielders. He's been thrown on the scrap heap. He's used well, we don't know how good he is because he ain't been able to play. Like Sancho, one of the best young English products come in. Um, Sunderland have just gone 3-0 up. And I'm trying to think. There's other players that I've just got that top of my head, but like I just don't. I don't know what it is with United. I know everyone will blame the Glazers, and I get why they do that. I do get that, but sometimes you can't blame the Glazers for how players are treated at the club, like by the manager
you
and
could only
stuff.
go so far with blaming the Glazers, but I do personally think it is a bit of a career suicide. But I do think with Jadon Sancho, part of it is he seems to have thought a lot better, a lot higher of himself when he's
I
not
think he
been.
has a crap attitude.
His
Like,
attitude is terrible.
yeah, he reminds me of he reminds me of similar of like an Aubameyang sort of attitude. Um, like thinks he's better than everyone, and maybe he's better than the winners they've got. Maybe I don't know, but
I don't know. To me, he's not
um,
been good at United since he came, so I don't think he's got.
yeah. So
Don't
that's
think
what I
he's got
mean.
much weight to throw about.
That's what I mean. Like he was decent at Dortmund, but then was he as decent as we want it that we know? Because they
A
did
lot.
have Bellingham and Haaland in that team.
Exactly, and in general, when there was a time where it was just Jadon Sancho at Dortmund, you know,
Didn't really
he was
work.
good,
With it.
but look at the players he had around him. They maybe weren't as good. So it's kind of what players you have around you that sometimes makes you better or worse than everybody else. That's my
Yeah,
kind of view on it. So
no, I agree. I don't know with Sancho if I'm honest. Like, if you said to me, would I want him at Arsenal? Probably not. Um, I just don't think he has the right attitude, and obviously there's murmurs of players going to the media again, isn't there? So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a Sancho or someone like that. But I don't even I don't even know where to really start with Sancho because you see like bits of what he can do, and then I don't agree with all this trial by media stuff with the manager and all that. I think people, if you have issues with the manager, you should say it behind closed doors and vice versa.
Absolutely, I've never been a fan of players and managers. Let's not. Like you said, it goes both ways. I don't agree with players and managers putting out these things, but you know why they do it. It's
Yeah,
like
cool.
Jadon Sancho. You know why Jadon Sancho complained to the media about Ten Hag, all
Yeah,
because to get attention, in my opinion.
yeah, no, yeah, I think that as well. And like, don't get me wrong, I want players and people to be able to say what they want to say. Like, but a manager should be able to come out and say, "Oh, God, he was crap today," because that's what we'd say down the pub about players. Or the player could come out and say, "Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I was crap today," or "We was just rubbish," what all that sense. But if you're highly criticising someone, like Mourinho done it for pastime, didn't he? Like just come out and say about players. But I don't think Sancho has a future at the club. Because when that trust
I
is
don't
gone,
think
it's
so. I
gone.
think that's finished for me.
But one thing I will say, and I know United fans will probably say, "Oh, but it's completely different." Let's just think though, it's not the first time that Eric Ten Hag's banished a player from Man United, is it? So like, let's
But
think.
more often than not, it's the player's fault. I mean, look at Ronaldo. That
That's what I'm
was
saying. Like the players he's had to basically banish from the club are very highly trying to think like big egos and attitude.
but that's the thing. These sorts of players are the ones that clubs need to get rid of because them egos don't help the club.
Yeah, like with the Ronaldo thing, that when you look at it, when you look back at it, everything he said about the club was bang on. It's just the way he did it. Um, but yeah, I do feel sorry for managers when they have to deal with players that do what Sancho's done. Like, and if in January, if the Glazers or whoever's in charge or men that got anything about him, they'll say, "Right, Sancho, you're off, mate."
Yep, to me, he needs to go. Prediction wise, I will probably go for a 2-0 win to Man United as well. But yeah, there's trouble there, and yeah, it will need sorting. Right, we'll skip over a few games and move on to Tottenham versus Liverpool. This game could be quite interesting, I think. Both teams doing pretty well at the moment. George, what do you think is going to happen?
Like you say, both teams are playing quite well. I think it'll be quite a high scoring game because Liverpool can be scored against. Tottenham have proved they can be, but both attacking teams are probably like one of the best in the league at the moment. Um, well, it depends if Madison's fit for Tottenham. If he's fit, then that's good for Spurs. But I'm probably going to go 2-2 again. So then Tottenham can celebrate it like another win, like they've done the last two.
Well, I guess to them, a draw against Arsenal, bearing in mind what happened last season, does feel like a win.
This shows the levels, though, doesn't it? Really. Um, that's what I mean. It shows the levels. Like a draw, that just shows how bad they were last season and the season before, really. Because like a draw against a team, I get it's away from home, North London derby and all that, but they should have. There's a chance they could have won that. So I think I've spoke to a couple of Tottenham fans, and um, they've said that the draw was a fair result, and I do agree with that. Like, um, there was times when Tottenham could have won it in the second half, but if you watch that Arsenal first half, then the game should be over and done with. But um, Liverpool, weird. Like they concede first and then just go and score 2 or 3 goals. But it just goes back
It's
to
like
when I said
it's
that.
like almost they need to concede first to get going.
Yeah, they're not defensively strong. Like I think we all know that. Um, but yeah, I go 2-2 because I think it's basically going to be Salah against Son, isn't it? Like that's going to be the big duel. Like who
Yeah, pretty
comes
much.
out?
That's what you're expecting. Who's going to score more?
Yeah, hopefully it's Salah for FPL.
Well, hopefully that would be good. But yes, 2-2. I think that's a fair prediction. I think it's tricky to pick the two teams apart.
Yeah.
So I think a draw is actually a fair result. So I'm gonna go. mm, I'm gonna go 2-2 as well. I was gonna try and be different, but when I looked at that game in general, I wasn't sure what to predict when I saw it last week. When I was looking at the fixtures last week to see what to talk about, I think that was gonna be
Interesting because the way they're playing Spurs, I feel like someone big might miss out on top four.
possibly. You never know. They're currently. I mean, the way they're playing, you can't count them out of the top four.
Yeah, and and I don't think there's many spots available for top four. Like City will obviously get top four. I honestly think Arsenal will as well because, like I said,
I'm thinking
what
City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, and then one spot is probably up for
I
grabs.
think for me it's between Tottenham, unless Liverpool go on a massive bad run or Arsenal do, but I just don't see it. I think it's between Spurs, United, and Newcastle.
Yep, I think that's well. United will have to wait and see, but definitely Spurs are in the count. Definitely Newcastle.
The only reason I say United because they'll get results. Do you know what I mean? This
You presume so, but
Man
depends
United because
depends how badly things carry on.
as Gary Neville and Roy Keane say, it's Man United. But
And you put Brighton there as an outsider, I think, for top four as well.
yeah, I don't know. They are very inconsistent for me.
They're
I
not
just
doing too badly.
no, they're not. But I think as Brighton's European road continues, I think that's when you'll see and stretch to see how good their squad really is. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Brighton get top four and go and win Europa League for me. But I think like losing to Chelsea was probably a blessing in disguise for Brighton,
Probably
really,
one less trophy campaign to worry about.
because they probably know they're not realistically going to win that league, the Carabao Cup. Maybe it's not the right attitude to have that,
But
but
I guess the further they go in each competition, the more money they get, which for their club is important if they want to maintain their European status.
they'll get a lot of money from the Europa League. Like I think going out the Carabao Cup early one year is not going to really detriment them too much. But is it? It's interesting. That's what I say. Like you got how the top. Like for me, I think the top seven kind of answers it all itself. Not, I'm not saying in a specific order, but I think you'll see obviously the teams we've mentioned, and I think Villa will be around that as well. So it's going to be lots of twists and turns.
Yeah, because at the moment you've got your table is Man
I think
City, Liverpool, Brighton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Villa, West Ham, and then Newcastle eighth.
yeah, see, I don't think West Ham will be up there. I
Do you
think
think
they'll
they'll
be
fall back?
around.
Do you think they'll fall back?
Yeah, I think they'll be like Conference League spot. Oh, because what everyone forgets as well, top five get Champions League this year.
Possibly.
The Finns changed, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, but basically, it all depends how well English clubs do in the European competitions. Now,
Yeah,
realistically, you see English teams doing quite well, but
yeah.
it depends which country does the best across the three European competitions as to which team will get that. So, fifth spot might or might not get Champions League,
Uh,
depending.
you'd expect it to just because of like past records, how English clubs have done
You would
well. But
expect it, but
to say, just hypothetically, say the top five get Champions League, then that means sixth will get Europa and potentially seventh, all depending on who wins certain cups. So whoever finishes eighth, but if it all goes to plan, could be getting Conference League. So
that is true.
that's that's where I think like that's why there's a long way to go, obviously, but it's like Tottenham could start. This is what I've always said about Spurs, and not because I obviously the feelings I have about them, but I'd like to see how they bounce back from a dodgy run. Because at the minute it's all been really good for them and with Ange Ball, but every team has a bad run. Like,
Plus, it depends how certain injuries might affect them.
yeah.
That could happen
But if
again.
they got Madison or Son injured, both,
That could be bad.
yeah, how do they react with that? No, they might react. Fair
And what
play.
they've got as backup.
Yeah, with Richarlison.
Mm. Says it all, right? Yes, says everything. Yeah. They kept the receipt for that one. Last game to review. There is no 4:30 game on Saturday, which is confusing. There is a 2 o'clock, which is Forest Brentford, but we'll skip to Monday night, which is the London derby at 8 o'clock. It's Fulham versus Chelsea. Now, Fulham not doing too badly. Beat Norwich in the cup. Then had before that had a board draw against Palace. Before that they beat Luton. So Chelsea desperately needed a win and got that against Brighton just about. I don't know. I find that game a tricky one to call, George. What do you think?
Yeah, I was saying this. Although there was some people saying, "Oh, Chelsea have got the win, so that'll give them confidence." It was only a cup game. Um,
I think it will give Chelsea confidence, but I think Fulham will be pretty confident too.
I think it'll give them confidence, but it all depends what team Chelsea put out as well. Because Chilwell's obviously injured. Jackson's suspended. I think James isn't fully back yet, is he?
No, and also Marlon Gusto is now
Yeah.
suspended.
So obviously, I don't know who they're going to play at right and left back. Maybe they'll play Cucurella, but that don't sound good to someone who
So
wanted to
that
be
wouldn't
at the
fill me
club.
with confidence.
No. So I don't know. Like I still slightly fancy Fulham just for where they're at home, and Chelsea struggled to score. I know they scored in the week, but they just a bit of a mess. Like I was listening to Pochettino the other day, and he said he practiced to try and get Mudryk to be better. He's been getting him to do crossbar challenges. And like, so what's all that about? Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Like,
I don't think anything. Mudryk is one of these players where he's just at the wrong club in general.
I just don't think he wants to be there, mate.
Oh,
Like,
he didn't even want to come there before he came to Chelsea. He didn't want to come to Stamford Bridge. So he's at the wrong club. It's the simple fact, and it's been like that since before he came. So,
I honestly think he wanted to go to Arsenal.
and he should
In
have.
his heart, in his heart was Arsenal and all that. Like, and then it just obviously got took away from him. What reasons we won't go into why he ended up at Chelsea, but. And I did. That's what it looks like to me. Like he's someone who definitely doesn't want to be there. Um, I saw bits of the Chelsea game, and Brozier's back, which would fill me with a bit more confidence with Chelsea because he's an actual striker.
Yeah, it's all right to have him back. I mean, he's better. Jackson, he had that boost with that goal, but I'm not. One, he's suspended. Two, I'm not sure really how much he's worth. Brozier is not bad, but I'd like to see how he does. I think I'm waiting desperately for Nkunku to be back in a couple of months
Yeah,
because I think that will change things.
yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, so it'd be interesting that both teams haven't really got a proper striker. Like Jimenez doesn't. He ain't no Mitrovic, is he? Let's be real. Or like he's not the Jimenez of a couple of seasons ago. So yeah, I think it'd be
Jimenez has not
interesting.
been himself since that head injury against Arsenal.
Yeah. But I think where the game will get won is in the midfield. Because obviously they've got the playmaker like Andreas Pereira, Fulham have got, and Reed and Alex Iwobi. He played well in the week. So yeah, being interesting. So about the echo, just I said Iwobi. um,
Good old Alexa.
yeah, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw, but I find that's a bit boring, and hopefully it's a good Monday night game. But I probably will go 1-1. I just don't think either team. They don't like Chelsea. Like I said, hopefully for you guys, it builds your confidence. But we've seen before, haven't we? Like teams winning the cup and then go and play in the league, and you're like, well, where was that team?
Yeah, confidence doesn't always go from one
That's
competition to
fun.
another. So yeah, I think 1-1 is a good prediction. I like to see a win for us. To be honest, I hope we've got a confidence boost from that Brighton. I mean, it wasn't an emphatic win, but it was a win, and it was a much needed one. So I'm
The only
hope.
thing that worry me is just who you play in defence, mate.
Yeah,
That's
I think injuries
like,
is a problem. It's another club full of injuries.
like unless they play Caicedo, if he's fit at right back, like they used to Brighton used to do, and then I don't know whoever Carl Levi Colwell at left back.
I
But
think
then
the lineup
obviously
will be interesting.
you're taking Caicedo out of that midfield, and there's no Lavier, so you whatever way you the the only best way I could have thought they could do it is obviously play Sanchez, um, Casado, then the normal back two, what they have been doing, and then Colwell, and then you'd have to have Enzo, Gallagher, and maybe Mudryk, and then Sterling, whoever your striker's going to be, and then
Brozier.
Brozier, or like that's what I mean. They're short, which is mad. You think the amount of players that Chelsea
Well, this is
pull?
the thing. A lot of people say we've got so many players, but it
You
doesn't
think
really look like it when you look at this situation.
I know, it's like obviously they might play one of the other youngster that you bought, the one who played in midfield last week, didn't he? I
Yes,
can't pronounce his
his name
name, but
escapes me, but yeah.
yeah. So, but that's what could affect Chelsea is the back four. Like, but we won't know that until we see what
Yeah,
the actual team. The one thing I did have to make me laugh quickly before we move on. I saw Reece James had been out injured, but then he got he got charged by the FA, but he hadn't even played.
he doesn't even have to play to get charged. Excellent. I've not seen that. I must have missed that.
Yeah, I think against the Villa game when you lost, he'd been done for basically mouthing off and all that, and he could face a suspension.
Excellent.
I thought he hadn't even
Fantastic.
played.
He doesn't even have to be on the pitch. Brilliant. That's all you want to see. Yeah, prediction wise, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Chelsea, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if it did end 1-1, to be fair. I think it's just.
Well, I was having a chat with this Chelsea fan, and he was saying to me, and because I suggested it at first, like you're desperate for a striker, and I've just never understood why they don't try and play Raheem Sterling as a number 9. I've just
Yeah, that's a
he's
good
done
point,
it.
to be
He's
fair.
done it for Liverpool and he's done it for City now and again. Like
Well,
I've just,
we
and then he
might.
scored a couple of goals against Luton, didn't he? Like I
Hmm.
just
I guess
like
it's
on
forcing him
Sat,
into that situation.
yeah, like Monday for me, like I'd play him now. What have you got? Let's be real. It can't be any worse because you can't score anyway,
Hmm. I'd
apart
say give
from in
it
the
a go. You
week.
never know.
Well, you got no Jackson and Brozier's only just come back, so you're quite limited. Like I say, what is the worst that can happen?
Well, I personally think we could be put in a situation where we might have no choice but to play Sterling as a striker, and we might then discover that actually he's not a bad player in that position at all. So I think it's anything's worth a try at this point. Pochettino's tried all sorts. He might as well just try that as well.
Because at the end, I know he's saying trust the process and all that, and it'd be interesting to get your view on that. But like, if it's got to come a time when you've got to start winning those games because
Results will have to come.
yeah, it's fine bantering Chelsea and all that, but Chelsea shouldn't be near relegation spots, however early it is.
Well,
Um,
no, but results have to come, and you have to look at
yeah,
what causes the problems. I mean, injuries is one thing, but there's still players in that Chelsea team who can score goals. Sterling he's been a very good player, so there's no reason he shouldn't be able to do something.
this is what someone was saying as like he was saying as well, a friend. Like these games that Chelsea are playing, when you look at them at the start of the season, you think they're winnable.
But you've got
But when
Enzo Fernandez, you've got Raheem Sterling,
yeah,
both
they're not.
very capable players.
You got international players. Like you look at those fixtures, like now they're winnable. Whereas you got when your fixtures in a few weeks, you've got a hellish month coming up. Like
You've got Arsenal on the 21st,
yeah, and then I think you've got like City and Liverpool or something
and we've
like
got
that. Like,
and we've got Spurs. at the beginning of November.
That's
So
what I mean. If you looked at it now, all those games Chelsea might not win. So there's 12 points that they're losing already. So they've got to pick up points wherever they can. Like, and the players they've got that like go through it quickly. Like Sanchez is a Spanish international. You've got Thiago Silva. We all know what he
Brazilian
does.
international, capable.
Like Chilwell, James. I know
Look,
they've not been
I'm
playing,
looking
but
at the players who are fit at the moment, and you still have international players there. You
yeah,
still
like
have players capable of beating teams.
Enzo Fernandez is £100 million player.
Well, I don't look at price tags these days because all of the price tags are out of proportion anyway. I
He's
don't
still
believe
he's
those.
still a quality player. Like
He's a quality player, but you can't really rate players by price tags these days. I've said this before. The price tags cause too many problems more than anything, really, because a good player who's been outpriced is basically then got that price tag on his head like a concrete helmet.
yeah,
So,
I just think there's game like that Chelsea Bournemouth game was what done it for me. Like realistically, they should have at least won that 3 or 4-0.
well, we should have gotten at least a 1-0 win out of that. I said 1-0 for that game, and I was frustrated that we didn't even get that. So, and we should have. That Villa game, if we didn't get sent off, you wonder what could have happened if Gusto didn't go
Before
off.
we move on, what's your opinion on Pochettino? Because I've heard some Chelsea fans saying it's not working.
I think it's too early to say, to be honest. I think the problem with a lot of football fans and football owners as well is they're very keen to fire a manager very quickly just when it's not working. And sure, for all we know, the manager might be the reason. Manager might be the problem, and he might have to just go after a few months because it's just not worked. But to me, the problem is not the manager. The problem is the players we've signed, the players Todd Bowley have signed. We've got a
I think Todd Bowley's the problem.
we've got a Muppet in charge who basically doesn't know what he's talking about. By his own admission, he's still trying to work out how certain things work. Now, to me, even if you feel like that, you should not be saying that when he was quoted by newspapers, however reliable or unreliable they might be, he's been quoted to say things like that. Now, to me, you don't say things like that. You don't put yourself out there on the plate like that. So, to me, whether Pochettino is the problem or not, I think managers need to be given more time. I think a lot of managers are basically on tenterhooks, kind of going, will I be fired in a few weeks? Will I be fired in a few weeks? They're anxious because they don't think they're going to last long, because managers don't last long these days. And I think that pressure is causing a problem.
So the issue I have with the Chelsea, like how it was all happening, like I don't agree with Todd Bowley going in the dressing room, personally.
No.
Because I just don't think that works. And you think like since Graham Potter got the sack, Chelsea have won 2 league games. For me, that proves it's not the manager.
No, I don't think it is. And to me, the fact that Thomas Tuchel got sacked was beyond ridiculous. That's when it all started. Thomas Tuchel was a great manager for Chelsea. The problem was he didn't want to do what Todd Bowley said what Todd Bowley wanted.
For me, that group of players Chelsea have got easily minimum of a top 6 club.
I mean, you look at the players we had last season. That team should have gotten much further, but there's problems there, and I think managers have done their best. But I think Todd Bowley is the problem. Yeah, okay. On one hand, you can say, "Oh, the owners going to the dressing room means they care about the club and they want to get involved." But is it that good?
But it's not their job to get involved, is it? At the end of the day, that's the manager's job for me.
The biggest problem with Todd Bowley is getting rid of the people that know about football because he thinks he knows everything.
Yeah, exactly. You get rid of the people that have that football input. It's a bit like United. You have people that know about football and have that football brain. You get success. Like I'll use Arsenal as an example. We had Stan Kroenke and all that, and Arsenal fans hated them because there was no one in charge. We had the wrong people in charge at the time. They've sat back and looked and thought, well, hold on a minute, we need to change this. Josh Kroenke's took more of a hand in it. They brought in Edu and said to Edu and Arteta and Tim Rice, I think that's his name or something like that. You deal with all the football business and we'll deal with the finance. Now look how Arsenal have gone.
Exactly, and
it's proof in the pudding. It's not.
It's having the brains there.
It is, and then with Chelsea, they had the people there, and then Todd Bowley got rid of them. So I don't know who's still there now or not. But um, I don't know. Like, and I think what the problem with Chelsea is now, their players have got no confidence. Like they don't believe they can win in the league.
No, and the
But as
problem
soon
is,
as that happens, then the confidence will change. I don't think Pochettino's a bad manager.
oh,
Like,
Pochettino is one of these managers who's always been said that he can get the best out of the players he has because he's used to dealing with clubs which don't back him and give him the players he wants. So he gets the best out of the players he's got. So he is not the problem.
no, and that's what I mean. Because like, if you're Todd Bowley, you've got the problem is, mate. He probably doesn't care. Like,
Well, he's getting all the
it's,
monies.
yeah, like he don't care if Chelsea are losing every week because he gets paid. Like he gets his money. Like, but he'll soon get a culture shock. And I'm not saying this to wind you up, but if Chelsea got relegated, I don't think they would. But
Only thing that will push Todd Bowley to do something is if the income from Chelsea starts dropping.
yeah. And that's what I mean. So, like, if Chelsea were in the relegation battle or got relegated, he would have such a culture shock. And I don't get me wrong, I don't think Chelsea will. But then I did say last season, I thought Chelsea would be in the top half. But I don't know. Like, all I say is that if they don't win on Monday, and then if they don't win in the next 3 or 4 games, then you're starting to think, hold on a minute. And we all know what's going to happen. Bowley will say, "Oh, Pochettino, get rid of him."
Hmm.
And then who do you bring in then?
Well,
I was having this discussion, and
I'll give you
it,
two games, the two next games for Chelsea, Fulham and Burnley.
for me, if they don't get at
You
least a
don't-
win out of that,
At least one win has to be there. If not, to me, 4 points out of 6 is minimum here.
so I was at the weekend, trying to think, I can't remember who it was I was talking to, and we were talking about Chelsea, and he said, "Oh, you know what's going to happen next, don't you?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm only joking. It can't happen." He went, "They'll get Mourinho back," and I went, "Mate, you say that."
I
I,
don't think it'll be that bad. I don't think
I,
Mourinho
I,
would. No,
but I could not, I couldn't rule that out from Bowley doing that.
no. I think because of
That's the sort of decisions that I think he would make.
it
That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
maybe it's his style decision, but I don't. Yeah, I don't. I would be fair. I mean, even for Todd Bowley, I'd be surprised if he did something so stupid. I mean, Roma, I'm not doing brilliant. They got thrashed by Genoa yesterday, 4-1. So you do wonder.
do you know what I mean? It's that sort. He's that sort of person. Like he'd look at the past and say, "Oh, well, why did we get rid of him if we were winning trophies and go and get him?"
Well, in that case, bring back Roberto Di Matteo, who won us the Champions League.
Get Van Grant back.
But if you look at it, also, he's, it's when it's the things he says to the media sometimes, the hidden gems, which kind of goes, no, you just dug yourself a hole that even a
It's
digger
like that
wouldn't
player,
do.
wasn't it? The striker that you guys had, and he was on loan somewhere, and I know some people take a joke out, but I actually heard the video the other week, and he did. Like, I think is his name David Fafana.
Yes.
He was yeah. A few of my staff have mentioned David Fafana to me. I think we're interested, and the reporter said, "But he's your player."
Yeah. And he's confused.
Like, I know a lot of people thought it was a joke, but it actually
No, it's
wasn't.
not. I heard the same video a while back.
And
So
I'm like, hold on, you can't. You're telling me you don't even know who your own players are?
this is
Like,
my thing. It's like,
how
one, how much
embarrassing!
there's not knowing how things work, but there's not paying attention. And it's when we went into Champions League against Real Madrid, and he said we win 3-0, and I'm looking at it going, have you been watching your team? Have you been watching? Most likely it's Madrid that'll win 3-0. It's like he says these things, puts himself out there on the plate basically to be eaten alive.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
clueless. To me, the
I
man's the
did,
problem.
but it does make me laugh. Like a lot of clubs moan about their managers, but for Chelsea, it's definitely Todd Bowley for me. It's just
I think even if we had Steve Bruce as manager, we'd still do worse than expected.
I think, mate, even if you had Guardiola as a manager, I don't think it'd be
I don't
much
think
different.
any manager can do anything at the moment because there's no brains behind the club.
No. And I get people say, "Oh, but it's not the owner's job for the players."
It
No,
is.
it's not. But he's the one who funds them players, and like I'm not a great fan of Pochettino for obvious reasons. But don't tell me that he's not gone to Todd Bowley and whoever these people are and say, right, I want yada yada yada. I want striker or whoever. Like the
Pochettino
strikers,
knows who he wants.
yeah, like the strikers that have gone. Who you would think, oh, all right, hold on a minute. Like
Pochettino,
this,
he should have probably gotten Victor Osimhen from Napoli in the summer.
yeah, and that's what I meant. Like even Ivan Toney in January. I know Chelsea are linked with him, but why? Why would he go? One, why would Tony go there? And two, I just don't think Bowley would.
He'd quicker go to Arsenal and Tottenham.
Yeah, like you say, Aussie men. Like there was, like even Felix, for example. Like he was on loan at Chelsea, and he's been playing really well for Barcelona. But why didn't Chelsea go in for him? Like he was on loan there.
Hmm.
I'm not saying he was great at Chelsea
Oh, he
because
wasn't. But no.
no
But to
one
be honest,
was.
no one was.
Like you look at Kai Havertz at Arsenal, you can see how much last season's affected him because he's got no confidence at all. And don't get me wrong, the Arsenal fans don't help that
No,
by being
but
back.
what
But
would he have to build him confidence?
no, so we could do a whole show on
I want to say
Chelsea.
that we could carry on for ages here, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. We might have a similar debate on the next preview show, which yeah, we'll see when the next review show. We'll see when that will be. Actually, you'll have to look at schedules because not sure if we're on Monday. So yes, we'll have a look at that. But yeah, thank you everyone who's watching either live or on demand. And yes, we will see how this weekend goes. Hope we've all done our Super Six and our fantasy and everything else. And yeah, we will be back next week at some stage. Look out for when that's going to be. And yeah, thank you, George. Thank you, everybody. So yes, like the video, share, tell your friends, subscribe. Remember to subscribe and hit that bell icon because when we go live, you will get pinged and you will be able to tune in straight away to the show. So yeah, you can find us on social media at Golden Goal TV. You've got the Facebook group if you want to get involved. You've got WhatsApp group if you want to chat football and get some news. And occasional mixed sports gems too, like today about the Usyk Fury fight. So yeah, and of course we got the channel. So all there. And George, where are you on the X machine, or otherwise known as the Twitter? And where else can people find you?
So you can find me at George AWFC. Yeah, and obviously doing stuff with the red and white for the Arsenal women, and some kind of exciting news with actually women's football. Quickly, is that I know all you guys love doing fantasy football for the men. Well, now there is a fantasy football for the women, and it is quite accessible for those people that use VoiceOver.
Oh yeah.
And they're in the process of building an app, which I'll be trying out the accessibility for in the next few weeks. So, anyone who's interested in that, we can try that a go. So yeah,
That's
keep.
I'm in. Definitely in for that. And yeah, remember the WSL season kicks off this weekend. So if you want to get into WSL, the time's perfect for it. So get right into it. There's plenty, including a London derby for Chelsea. Chelsea Spurs. I tried to get tickets for it, didn't. So yeah, you can find me on @Hubert3001 and follow some of my other work, including the work I do for RNIB Connect Radio, also amongst other bits and pieces. So yeah, thank you all for watching. We will see you very soon.